What's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen at a party? NSFW. A couple went to a bedroom to duck, but they left 10 minutes later because two guys were hiding in the dark jerking off to them ducking. I've posted the full story before. A girl was giving butt naked lap dances for money. She was probably a stripper. She was straddling my friend and I saw some period blood dropping on his chest. We threw some singles at her so she would keep going because that's what friends are for. Sorority girl making out with the drunk passed out carcass of a fraternity guy. For like 10 minutes. He literally did not move at all. After she left to go dance again, 4 of his buddies had to carry him out. Drunk girl fell down a flight of stairs to the basement at a party, landed face first on a pile of hardwood scraps and gashed her face pretty good. Reverted to speaking Spanish. She was visiting from Mexico and refused the idea of calling an ambulance. She ended up fine the next day from what I heard, but looked pretty bruised from the pics I saw. She was drunk in the kitchen and went to lean on the wall. But there was a doorway where she thought the wall was, and she just kind of disappeared mid-conversation with someone. It was funny for about 2 seconds. Then we heard her land on the wood pile and we all rushed to help her. As the party was winding down, my friend was passed on the sofa. He suddenly got up making some grunting sounds. Proceeded to stumble right round the coffee table in front of him and back to the couch. He then pulled down his jeans and boxers and sat back down. The sound of runny turd squelching between his ass and that leather couch will haunt me for the rest of my life. One of my college roommates brought his 16-year-old younger brother up to school for a weekend of partying. Not the most responsible decision. But hey, college. Anyways, we take him to a frat party and about an hour in, I walk in on him making out with a girl in the garage as if he did it for a living. He was out there for about 30 minutes and comes back in alone and joins us. He then finds this other girl and says verbatim, "So, I just made out with this girl for 30 minutes. Think you can beat that?" They then walked away back to the garage. Most impressive move and most ridiculous working pickup line I've seen pulled off by anyone. This party had got really out of control. People were drawing all over the walls with markers. The host was crying act. But the funniest thing I saw was when I walked by the kitchen. There were about 6 people gathered around the microwave, drumming their hands on the counter and keeping a low chant of ooh, and then there was a loud pop. Everybody cheered and then they opened the microwave and put more eggs in. A girl charging $10 a pop to let guys eat her pussy. There was a crowd of like 15 guys taking turns and cheering each other on. I'm like, WTF, I don't think you guys understand how prostitution works. Watched a midget do a keg stand in college. The ridiculous part was when he landed back on his feet. His eyes immediately rolled to the back of his head and he passed out. He fell backwards like a board and smacked his head on the floor. He looked dead for a few seconds and several people circled around him. When he finally opened his eyes, everyone yelled and cheered. Seemed like a movie. Once at a family party I saw 2 deaf men signing to each other, but at the same time getting much drunker. The signs just became slower and blurrier and the last I saw of them they were just hugging. 2 people with Down syndrome ducking in front of a crowd of people. It was my father's 25+ years with his co-workers party in our backyard. One guy had a motorcycle accident a year prior and this was his first party out of his bed he was in for 12 months. Promptly chugged along with everyone until he's having such a good time and obviously buzzed that he stands up off his wheelchair propping himself with his forearms onto his 2 feet so fast everyone stood agape until he fell forward onto the table full of 40 beer bottles a half second later. Then it was laughter and good times rolling for these guys until sunrise next morning. He had forgotten he was handicapped among his buddies. Edit. Wow, this went all the way to the top. Thanks guys. I'll be sure to let my pops know to tell his bud that his story is a source of inspiration for others in the same rough patch. Group of us, ages 17-19, around a bonfire drinking beers and girls start asking dudes truth or dare questions. Things start heating up and sexual tension is building up until my buddy asks this drunk girl who chose truth what her craziest masturbation story was. She tells us that midway through finger banging herself she let a German Shepherd mount her and she came. Killed a mood that was set because she started bawling when one of the guys called her a dog ducker and the rest of the girls tried to take care of her. TL. DR cock blocked by bestiality story. This girl that was a friend of a friend that nobody else really knew was clearly on something and was pretty out of it. We are all sitting around having a good time, when out of nowhere this girl stands up, walks to the refrigerator, opens the crisper drawer, which had a couple bananas in it, pulls down her pants and proceeds to squat and piss in the crisper. Nobody stopped her when we saw what was going on because I think we were all in shock and couldn't really believe this was actually happening. Other friend that was trying to get with her tried to calm the situation by grabbing a banana that had just been pissed on and peels it and eats it to show there is nothing wrong with them. Later in the night that girl gave a blowy to a third friend in the backyard. I was at my friend's place with maybe 15 other people drinking, and at that time the McRib was back. This one guy Rob had brought one with him and devoured it, probably in under 30 seconds. About 10 minutes later, he went wide-eyed and began to regurgitate it in one piece, roughly the same size and shape as the original McRib he had just eaten, but reconstituted out of McRib pulp pasted together with Bush Light. It landed on his stomach and sat there for a second until someone went, "Hey, the McRib is back." Watched someone butt chug a beer through a funnel, then watched an unaware bystander come over and funnel a beer through the same funnel. However, the two, both guys, ended up hooking up later in life. Was at a party in high school. It was a pretty big party. People everywhere. I walk into the laundry room to a large group of people. About 15. They were all huddled around a dog kennel with a large bloodhound and 2 collars inside. They were laughing hysterically, yelling about some kind of initiation. Perplexed, I asked what this initiation was. Then one guy who I don't think I had even met before proceeded to pull his pants down past his ass and press his cheeks against the metal cage. The dogs all happily licked this kid's ass. I turned around and walked out. Weirded. Don't even know what this initiation was for. One of my friends turned up to a party in his original Mini, something like this. He got completely wasted and didn't want to drive home. So rather than take a taxi, he pushed his car the whole 3-mile journey. 2 drunk girls just beating the it out of this one jack dude. The story afterwards was that he was cheating on both of them at the same time and they met at the party when it all came out. Went to a friend's house party around 7 years ago. There were at least 100 people in a 2 up 2 down house. Most people in a room witnessing a girl attempting to fit a pretty big telescope in her pussy. It was messed up. A girl eating her pants. Nobody knew her really. She was just there, unleashing the dark bomb and left crying. Never saw her again. They served a Sauvignon Blanc with steak and roasted potatoes. We were having a party at our house and one of the guests got a little out of hand. He started breaking beer bottles on the floor and dancing in the shards of glass in his bare feet. The dance floor cleared and a circle formed around him, watching as he began rolling around on the floor, cutting himself on the glass. One of my housemates started yelling at him to get out and he turned to her and said, "Stop censoring my art." High school keg party featuring Nirvana cover band. Everybody's in the backyard. Big chain link fence across the back of the yard. When the cops come, all 50 kids hit that back fence simultaneously and try to jump over it and run away. Fence falls over from the weight. A crush of screaming. Drunken juvenile humanity. I was 21 so I stayed with the keg. More for me. A girl was giving another girl a lap dance and sucking on titties and whatnot. Then she totally sneezed. I drunkenly called out, "Oh my god. She just sneezed on your tits." And it really ruined the moment. After reading this thread, I realized I have an amazingly normal life. A horse just chilling in the kitchen of a high-rise apartment in Manhattan. At one Halloween party I watched one dude who was wearing Misfits face paint drop one of those spinner fireworks into a can of beer, which it burned through quite quickly, creating a cloud of noxious smoke in an unventilated room. Started firing Roman candles at some teens hanging out down the block from the house the party was at. Almost got his ass kicked. And, slowly over the course of the evening, smudged his makeup and became a panda. A drunk naked guy holding a weasel singing happy birthday to it. Stay clear of Everclear. One dude ate the 7-layer bean dip with only his hands. A pregnant girl drinking and doing lines of coke. My friend had a hernia that protruded into his nutsack. So know it. His nutsack was between the size of a baseball and softball. He pulled it out in the middle of a party and the room went silent. Ended up watching a karate movie when I was hanging out with my sister and one of her friends. Her friend was a super nerdy but also really cute Asian girl. The couch was small, so she decided to lay on our laps to watch the movie. I creeped my hand up her thighs, and at first she moved my hand away, but eventually I got to fingering her, and she eventually finished. A few moments passed after that and all I could think about was how much I hated my sister for being there, and if she wasn't, that I'd be getting laid right now. A few moments after that she got up to go use the restroom and looked at us both and said that was amazing guys. I looked at her and at my sister, and then my sister looked at me with a look of suspicion. We found out a bit later that I was fingering her and my sister was massaging her breasts. Yep, I had a co-sexual experience with my sister, who wasn't as bisexual.